Hello, my name is Alastair Gray. I am the ReformUK candidate for the constituency of Esher and Walton for the next parliamentary election. I spent my whole life studiously avoiding politics, not because I don't care, but simply because I don't trust any person to articulate my views as well as I think I can do myself. Well, seeing the complete impending train wreck that net zero will bring to our society, and the fact that 600 representatives of ours in Westminster implemented this with little indication of rational thought, no debate, and they're leading us over the cliffs into impending disaster. Well, someone has to speak out about that, and it may as well be me. So you may ask what makes me qualified to speak on these matters. Well, I spent my entire career as a geoscientist with degrees in physics and geophysics, working on oil and gas projects worldwide, both new fields and looking for and working on development of existing fields. I can assure you that in that economic environment, we work very hard on making sure that we know exactly how much we're going to spend and exactly what return we'll get on it. That process of economic evaluation and knowing exactly how much we will spend to what benefit is what is lacking in the appraisal and assessment of our net zero policy. Economic evaluation of net zero policy is something that just simply didn't happen. The Climate Change Committee, nothing. The government, nothing. The civil servants, nothing. The Office of Budget Responsibility, derisory. Parliament, nothing, no debate. The media, diddly squat. The BEIS, again, nothing. But they did say, in response to Freedom of Information requests, that they had done a spreadsheet, but they lost it. I decided to sit down, draw up a spreadsheet to find out the best estimate of exactly how much we would spend to get there. The answer is £3 trillion to be spent over a 25-year period. Well, first of all, I couldn't imagine what £3 trillion actually looks like. And then I thought, the government will talk about £1 billion here, £1 billion there, and 10 billion on this. Well, if you remember HS2, it would cost us the equivalent of 30 HS2s. And that's one HS2 project every year until 2050. That's 3 trillion. Or, to put it another way, the COVID lockdown cost us £400 billion. So I'm talking about 10 of these. Now, my spreadsheet, the only one I know of in existence, probably underestimates the cost by maybe a factor of 3, just like HS2, for instance, or any other government initiative. They all overrun hugely. That's why I'm very, very worried about this net zero policy. Well, enough of that for the moment. We'll address that issue a lot over the next few months. Now, about the rest of the reform agenda. In a broader sense, reform policy concentrates on one concept, the concept of freedom. But what freedoms do you think are under threat? I can think of ULEZ zones, the extension of ULEZ zones into our borough. It's on the way. We've got low traffic neighbourhoods, we've got 20-mile-an-hour limits, we're on the way to 15-minute cities, we're on our way to climate lockdowns to restrict our right to travel anywhere. All implemented with no discussion, no consultation with us, the people who are affected. So freedoms are so important to us in our everyday work. I mean, think of the freedom to set up your own business venture, large or small. The freedom to have a decent job with a reliable future. Currently, our farmers are hamstrung by regulations even worse than the EU, and it will get worse. Freedom of speech. It's become fashionable recently to ruthlessly attack anyone who disagrees with the prevailing orthodoxy. We see that in newspapers, in social media, and in deplatforming. We saw it in Brussels when a meeting of respectable Conservative politicians was broken up by the police of all people. Only opinions which support the right view are allowed, whether climate change, gender issues, talking about mothers and fathers. Hate speech restrictions are applied to many, but not all views. Misogyny, apparently, is still all right. Wearing a cross, for example, is right-wing fascism. Calling for jihad and Sharia law is an expression of a human right. So, in reform, how are we presented by the media to the public? We are racists, climate deniers, far-right bigots. As I see it, far-right is brutal, violent thugs going around breaking up meetings, attacking anybody who disagrees with them. That's more like the far left ideology that seems to be accepted by the authorities. I'd like to talk about sovereignty now. We've got 3,000 years of immigration and integration of many peoples into our country. Do we need the United Nations and Europe to lecture us on how to handle and maintain our borders? I don't think so. And did we need to cede any of the rights over our society to the World Health Organization or to the European Court of Human Rights, whose charter we initially were largely responsible for drafting after the war? I would like to finish with a word on defense and security. It's a dangerous world out there, and I'm not sure that the rest of the politicians in the other party really appreciate this. But we cherish something about our country with all its disparate elements, and we need self-reliance to keep that going. And that goes to defense of our rights, defense of our borders, defense of our vital industries, farming, for instance. We need self-reliance. We can't rely on the rest of the world to look after us. We've got to preserve independence of spirit, but we've got to be outward-looking as well. We are citizens of the world. We've been damn good citizens of the world in the past, and we will in the future. So that's what reform wants to get and maintain. And I look forward to your vote.